All right, good morning. It is 8:31 and I think it's time to get started. So good morning and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us for a virtual discussion of how to unlock, protect, and increase business value through digital transformation, hosted by the Michigan Manufacturers Association. My name is Delaney McKinley and I am Vice President of Membership, Marketing, and Events for the MMA. MMA is the only statewide organization focused solely on securing a prosperous future for Michigan manufacturers. We do that through effective advocacy at the state capitol, meaningful education, and strategic business services. We represent more than 1,600 members, ranging from small mom and pop shops to the world's largest and most iconic corporations. Now, before I introduce you to our subject matter experts this morning, I've got a bit of housekeeping to cover. We really do hope that today's discussion will be interactive. So please feel free to use the Q&A function to share your thoughts and questions. There should be a button towards the bottom of your screen that you can click on to open a new Q&A window. So we plan on dedicating time at the end of the discussion specifically to answering your questions, but feel free to submit them throughout today's presentation. You don't have to wait to that time to submit them. So you'll also be receiving a recording of today's discussion. So watch your inbox for that within the next 24 to 48 hours. So now I am pleased to introduce our illustrious panelists today. First, we have Doug Lalone. Not only is Doug a registered patent attorney and partner at Fishman Stewart in Troy, Michigan, where he chairs his patent firm's strategic IP practice group, he's also a mechanical engineer. So he brings a particularly unique perspective to the discussion of manufacturing and intellectual property law. For the past 30 years, Doug, he's an expert in identifying, securing, and leveraging innovations for manufacturing companies. He's developed extensive experience in both prosecuting and defending intellectual property suits and has been recognized by best lawyers, super lawyers, and leading lawyers in the areas of copyright and trademark law, intellectual property law, patent law, and trade secrets and unfair competition law. Next, we have Robert Nemec. Bob is the managing partner at Twisthink, where he manages business strategy, day-to-day team leadership, and business development. Bob earned his bachelor's in mechanical engineering from Michigan Technological University and an MBA from University of Michigan Stephen M. Ross School of Business. In 2001, Bob created Twisthink as an experiment to test the belief in the value of twisting together the skills of design, technology, and strategy. So for 2 decades, Bob has been leading the Twisthink team to partner with Fortune 500 clients, as well as entrepreneurial startups to unlock the new value by creating digital connected solutions. Some of Twisthink's clients include Whirlpool, Vermeer, Stryker, Crown Equipment, Flexco, and Bissell. Now, with that introduction, we clearly have got some highly experienced, highly valuable voices at the table today. So I'd like to turn it over to Bob to share his thoughts on how manufacturers can really take advantage of digital transformation across their company.
Great. Good morning, and thank you, Delaney. Good morning, Doug. Give me a moment to share my screen and we'll be off to the races.
Yep.
I'm honored to be with a super lawyer. That's cool. So congrats on that, Doug. And again, to those webinar participants, good morning. And we really appreciate you taking time out to learn more, hear more, and hopefully walk away inspired to leaning into change. So the title's a bit lengthy: Unlock, Protect, and Increase Business Value through the all-important megatrend of digital transformation, or sometimes we like to call it digital acceleration. And I think all that are following us this morning would agree that today's economy is all about data. And hopefully what you'll see here is an opportunity for you to gain more strength and more momentum in your own pursuit of data, whether it be for greater efficiency, greater effectiveness, or greater user experiences. All are important as we sprint through 2021, as we look ahead to the decade that's unfolding before us. So with that, I'm going to drive, Doug, and let's have some fun with this, some back and forth along the way, and let's share our many years of experience. So
Great, thanks, Bob.
Just by way of framework, when you talk about digital transformation and you look at any organization kind of broken up into these 4 sectors, our point of view, Doug's point of view would be that digital impacts them all, from team building all the way through to operations and products and services. And it's really those latter 2 that we tend to focus on today. So products and services, digital user experiences, connected devices, digital product strategy might be key battle cries around that area of your business. And then certainly operationally, even as we think of the audience being that of Michigan Manufacturers Association and participants, we know that the connected factory or industry 4.0 or smart industry are all being disrupted, or new opportunities are being created to bring a higher level of digital opportunity to your operation. So our point of view as we move through just a handful of slides is to appropriately emphasize that organizations that pursue both are in the best position to continue to grow and lead in the decade ahead. And so hopefully as you see the story unfold, it's an unrehearsed story, so Doug and I are working through this together on the fly, but hopefully as you see it, you'll be encouraged to think about, hey, what piece of data, what data point could I collect today that would impact my business operations? And that's a question worth reflecting on in the summer of 21.
And Bob, I would just interject there also that this is just not for operations that are manufacturing intensive. It could be a service-based industry as well. These concepts that we're going to be talking about, the human-centered design concept that you're going to be laying out here shortly to our audience, it's equally applicable to consumer service companies as well as companies making widgets that are members of the Michigan Manufacturing Association. So this is equally applicable across the board in my view.
Yep, great point, great comment, and great theme as we talk about what piece of data operationally might drive value creation within your business, but also importantly, what piece of data do you wish you could secure from your stakeholders, from your customers? And there too, that data, as we've seen over the years, can create tremendous value, and certainly sharing and partnering with Fishman Stewart on this webinar is to highlight the obvious point that when you're in the world of creation, the title Unlock is all about creating. When you're in the world of creation, we all know that intellectual property is a tremendous asset that also fuels value creation. So having an ability to wrap new ideas in creation with intellectual property is the obvious point of today's conversation. But this slide in many ways is near and dear to my heart and the team that I represent on this webinar, and I believe even the Fishman Stewart team. Human-centered design is a process, and I'm sure if I could see everyone on this webinar and I ask you the question, hey, raise your hand if you're familiar with the process of lean manufacturing, I'm willing to bet $1 that everyone's hand would go up quickly. But I wonder if I ask that same question around this process of human-centered design, I wonder how many hands would then go up. And so my appeal to you, as I just briefly unpack it here, is if you're not familiar with this process, take the time, leverage the internet, leverage Amazon book, Audible, and learn more about HCD, or what's sometimes referred to as design thinking. For us, this is where value creation either starts or ends. And so the point of HCD is, as it's graphically shown there, looking at any opportunity, any problem statement through those three lenses: usability, desirability. That's purposely slowing down to understand the head and the hearts of your stakeholders. Those may be internal stakeholders. Those could be external stakeholders in the form of customers. But slowing down long enough to understand where they're at today, and then in the famous Gretzky quote of skating to where the puck will be, where they're headed in the years ahead. So that's a key part of HCD, but it doesn't just stop there. You then balance that with obviously two critical lenses as well: business viability, technical feasibility. And our point of view is that the rich area of value creation, of business leadership, dwells in the middle of those three lenses on any problem statement, on any opportunity statement. So this process forces you to ask, okay, who are the stakeholders? And just a question there for you to reflect on through the week ahead. Do you know all of your stakeholders? Do you have them defined, and how are they visualized? So key. And then the following question there around how can we create new digital value for them? And we would translate that to new user experiences with them. And then, as already mentioned, you know, in honor to Doug, how do we protect and leverage the new value? Comment, Doug?
Yeah, point number 2 there on the slide, I maybe could just kind of share with our audience a little more about what do you mean by creating digital value? You know, your header here talks about human-centered design process, which I didn't understand that fully until we started engaging and talking about the process that Twisthink engages when they're hired to solve an engineering problem of an old world kind of a brick and mortar kind of problem. And your firm is hired to create digital solutions to take people to 21st century and beyond using your human-centered design process. But what do you mean by digital value? Then I'll comment on point 3.
Yeah, great question. I think, you know, maybe I would translate digital value to, or just amplifying or unpacking that. I would simply say, you know, we're now deeply immersed in a world of smart and connected products. And that creates opportunities. As you're going to see later in this deck, we have a case study that creates tremendous opportunities for organizations within the MMA network to deploy sensors on capital equipment, sensors on their team, sensors within their operations to create certainly a smarter, safer, more efficient internal operation. And to your point earlier, that could be a service business like a bank or a law firm, as much as it is a product business producing a blinking widget.
Right. Even a company like Amazon, which is in the business of providing goods. Imagine the artificial intelligence and the IoT that is within their organizations, where they're measuring things and harnessing all that data. A lot of this is about big data, right?
Big data.
Creating digital value for clients is is really the output of that, and output of that is creating information, consumer information, vendor information, manufacturing information. Our clients who are manufacturing companies create terabytes of data every given day on their operations. So part of the conversation is about harnessing that data and then creating that into value, and then rolling into point number 3 here, and that is, in this human-centered design process, how can we best protect and leverage the new value that we create to increase enterprise value? Because at the end of the day, this is about increasing value to our customers through using digital solutions. And you're unique, you're creating digital solutions for clients through using your human-centered design process. Where we step in is, once a company like you have taken your team of engineers and scientists, have created solutions, we then step in and we identify those solutions, and then we use the tools in the Fishman Stewart tackle box to then protect those new innovative solutions, which it's amazing. Just a quick tidbit, last year during the pandemic, patent filings at the US Patent Office were up 5%. Trademark filings were up 9.5%. So just when you thought innovation was stalled during a pandemic, to the contrary, people are leveraging the technologies that were developed this last year and also into next year. And it's shown by the patent statistics, and those numbers continue to rise even here in 2021.
Yep. Great input. You mentioned engineers, yes. Scientists, yes. Those are key parts of the team at Twisthink. But there's another key part that really is quite experienced and gifted in what you see on the screen now, called HCD, and that is design. Industrial designers, design strategists, and having that talent within any business is priceless, is value generating. The creative, visually skilled, user experience, kind of empathetic capability mixed in with hardcore engineers. That's where we believe value can best be created, and it's really where we get the experience and the understanding of this great process. Let me just go on to this next slide. I was making the point about Smart Industry 4.0 is hugely important to MMA, and it should be, because it allows organizations to pursue operational excellence. And so that's very much an internal new understanding based off of data secured within any business operation. And there's a face with names there, you might say, with stakeholders internally. But the case study that we're going to unpack in a moment, and really, I think what is also equally exciting in the world of digital transformation is how you can impact the world outside of your four walls. And so externally, looking at a process like HCD to engage with customers, suppliers, dealers in a whole new way. That's where innovation excellence reigns. And so again, the encouragement in this call and this meeting is for MMA participants to go after both. So with that, let me just, again, innovation isn't a random idea that just kind of falls out of the sky. Innovation, value creation is a process. And so you see the process outlined here, and woven with it is the all-important piece of intellectual property. But before I maybe throw a question at you, Doug, I just want to amplify for the team this morning the point of HCD being applied in the first four circles that you see captured under exploration or experimentation. That's where strategic thinking deserves to be deployed, and wrestling around what deserves to be built. A dollar spent there before hundreds of dollars are spent in development and in delivery. That's a little bit of the point here. And it's the process of HCD that drives that strategic thinking. So Doug, from a IP perspective, where should the IP attorney be pulled in to help?
Well, our preference as IP specialists is to get into the process early. If you look at your four-step process here, exploration, experimentation, development, and delivery, often unsophisticated users of the intellectual property process will call us at the launch, at the delivery stage. And that's after the fact. That's the design, the marketing, the investment, the capital expenses have been spent at the launch stage, as you can appreciate from a manufacturing perspective. And once you launch, you're locked into a solution. And so that's kind of late in the game, but that's often when we get called to get involved with identifying and protecting and securing the intellectual property that would have been developed as a result of the human-centered design process, or I should say, the traditional development and launch process of a manufactured product or a service. We prefer to back that up and partner and collaborate hand in hand at the early stage of the process. So during the exploration stage, you'll see a circle there that's in orange called analyze. That's when the Twisthink team is analyzing the solution, analyzing the problem, I should say. They're trying to understand why there's a problem that needs to be solved. A new widget needs to be created. A new process needs to be innovated. So that's when the analysts are studying the problem. In that early stage is when we need to be brought in tandem with the design team, the engineering team, the exploration team. And then when you get to the next orange circle there called decide, the decision stage really is appropriate time for us to come in. So for example, Bob, let's say your team at Twisthink is brought on board to create a digital solution to a problem. And you roll out perhaps solutions A, B, and C to the customer. Let's say to Whirlpool. You say, Whirlpool, we have 3 potential options. We haven't implemented them yet. We haven't done all the R&D, but here are 3 options. If we, as the patent guys, are brought in early in the process, and as engineers, we're going to understand, we talk the same lingo, we're both engineers, we will understand your 3 options. We will conduct something called an IP due diligence investigation, or sometimes called a freedom to operate, FTO investigation. We will conduct that at the early experimentation stage and say, all right, Bob, your team came up with A, B, and C. We've conducted some patent due diligence, or maybe some branding due diligence. Maybe your team came up with a brand as well. And we will say options A and B are problematic. They're very high risk. Why? That's because competitors already have a patent portfolio around solutions A and B. And it's very high risk if you deploy that. And you, as a solution finder in the innovation era, would not want to roll out to your customer an infringing product that's full of risk. So as risk managers, as patent attorneys, we would say option C looks like a clear path forward for your team and for maybe your end customer, whoever it happens to be, for them to deploy, for them to maybe go into the development stage and the delivery stage that's shown on this chart here. So in that situation, we would say, Bob, your team has the best opportunity and with the least risk to roll out option C as they move forward through the design and implementation stage. So at that point in time, we've given you some good intelligence at the front end of the process before you've expended money in buying machines, building plants, training employees, launching a marketing campaign on a widget that could be full of risk. So early in the process is our recommendation to engage us along with the design and exploration team so that we can help you launch a smart, successful, lower risk product and process. But more importantly, if it's clear, that is, if we've come out the other end of this process and that is patentable and protectable, you can then go to the next step and then secure that intellectual property on that new innovation, that new digital solution. And then you can own that piece. And we're going to talk about the value of owning your intellectual property during this conversation. But to answer your question, early in the process, early in the design, consideration, experimentation process is the best time for us to get engaged with the team.
Proactive instead of reactive. And I think.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the reactive is engaging us at the launch stage, at the delivery stage. That's late in the game. It's fraught with potential issues. It's better than not engaging us. But being a few months earlier, maybe a year earlier in the process, we can give you some better guidance to help minimize risk. And that's when we're really valuable. That's when we can really create value for the company when they're coming up with their new digital solutions, is if we get engaged in the process early, and it's not that much more expense. In fact, you could be saving yourself, company, by getting us engaged earlier in the process, because you're not spinning your wheels and launching solutions that are maybe infringing, that are fraught with problems. So you actually could save yourself. And we've seen that with clients where they've saved money by launching a product C that's clear, low risk, instead of a product A or B.
Right. So thanks for that. And again, the theme of this slide is creating value is fueled by a process. So that's that point. Doug, maybe for our team, if you could unpack this slide too, please.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just pick up kind of where we left off. And that is once solutions have been identified, say we're at the product launch stage, we're now knowing we're going to launch this product C. Well, our job then as attorneys, whether we've been brought in early or at the end of the process, is start at this this left-hand bottom corner, and that is we identify the innovative solutions. So the step going up this diagram here is we identify, secure, and leverage the digital transformations, the solutions that, for example, Bob's team at Twisthink may have come up with as a part of their human-centered design process. So what are we identifying? We're identifying the solutions that Bob or other engineers that came up with it. We identify the processes that came up. We identify the formulas. We identify the data. For example, if you're putting sensors on devices out on a plant floor or on a well out in the middle of a desert in Central Africa, you're creating data that gets sent to the cloud, which then gets processed by a server somewhere in the world. So we're identifying that as part of our process as engineers. We're identifying the data, the products, the processes, the solutions that result as a process of this human-centered design concept that Bob is talking about. The next step then is once we've identified those innovative solutions, we then secure them. And that's what we as registered patent attorneys do here at Fishman Stewart here in Troy, Michigan. We're experts at identifying and securing the innovative solutions. And then we figure out which lure in our tackle box here at Fishman Stewart do we use? Is this fall in the patent bucket, the copyright bucket, the trademark bucket, or the trade secret bucket, or know-how, or trade dress? There are other buckets we have in our tackle box that we deploy on a daily basis here with our team to properly secure the thing that your team, Bob, your teams have invented. So that's where we become like the brain surgeons in the intellectual property space to help really focus on which bucket the IP falls into, and then we deploy our tools to perfect them and secure them. Then when we further go up the ladder, you may say, well, why do we do this? And we're going to get to the value proposition here shortly. But the fundamental thing is when you've secured your intellectual property on your innovative solutions, you're creating market power exclusivity, and that's found on the leverage top section there. Now, what does that mean? For example, a patent gives you a monopoly for 20 years. That's a pretty powerful monopoly. That's legal. That's lawful under the United States laws, where you can leverage that market exclusivity. And quite frankly, the CFOs love that, because when you own the market space, you have guaranteed revenue streams, and CFOs love that. The next thing is you increase enterprise value. That's where the CEOs come in and go, you're kidding me. You can increase the value of my company by securing the products you've identified down on the bottom row there? The answer is absolutely yes. We increase the value. In fact, a large percent of the value of S&P companies in the United States now are focused on, that value is focused on intangible assets. Guess what? Patents, trademarks, copyrights are some of the most powerful intangible assets a company can have on its balance sheet. Another thing we get to leverage, and that is once we've secured our IP, and that is we can create revenue streams. We can license it and create money. And that's what we see there on the leverage level on our screen here. We can create a revenue stream by licensing our patents, our trademarks, our know-how, our trade secrets to other people in the ecosystem. So it's a revenue stream generator, which again, the CFOs love that because it's found money to the bottom line. It's a recurring revenue stream that's found money to the, you can see it on the bottom line. And companies in Michigan love that. And so, and the final thing I'm just talking about, you can leverage the IP that you've now secured to help employee recruitment opportunities. Because guess what? It's hard finding employees right now. And Bob, your customers and my customers, manufacturing customers have two key issues right now: finding talent because their order boards are full. They can't run the machines fast enough. And guess what? They have supply problems. We're not going to talk about supply today. That's a conversation for another day. But if you can have an IP portfolio and you can leverage to potential new employees saying, we have proprietary products, we protected them, we're innovators, come join our team. That's a pretty interesting sales pitch to getting the next engineer, the head of sales over here, as opposed to saying, I'm a commodity product producer, I sell commodity products, it's a race to the bottom line. That doesn't sell much when you're trying to recruit people. That's not very attractive in my view. So leveraging your intellectual property that you've identified, secured, can help recruit new employees. So, and there are more things we can leverage, but I just wanted to point out 4 things that are attractive to manufacturers, particularly to our customers and clients here in the Michigan Manufacturing Association. Here are 4 things, here are 4 benefits that you can leverage by identifying and securing your intellectual property. The next slide I just want to talk about from an IP standpoint is really the value, the why. Why do we do this? So let me just give you an interesting factoid here for our Michigan listeners. In 1975, 83% of the value of the S&P 500 companies was associated with traditional assets. Now, we know what traditional assets are: the real estate, your buildings, they're the equipment on the plant floor, they're cash and bonds, equities and things like that, things that are spinning off as a result of selling the widgets that are made as a result of the equipment setting in your real estate. So 83% of the value was associated to the traditional assets. Let's go to bucket number 2, digital and intangible assets. The world has been changed upside down in the last 35 plus years. And that's why we're talking about digital transformation. And here's the value, what Bob's team does and what we do to help protect digital assets. In 2020, 90% of the value of the S&P 500 companies are now associated with intangible assets. Look at that paradigm shift between 1975 and 2020. If you're not part of this digital revolution, you're getting left behind in the dust. If you're just focusing on old traditional assets, you're going to get left behind, I'm afraid to tell you. So that's why your companies, especially the Michigan manufacturing companies, we really need to move forward in this whole conversation of digital transformation here in Michigan and the Midwest, because we can be thought leaders in this process. And if you're not capturing these digital intangible assets, you're going to get left behind. Here are some examples of what we mean by intangible assets. Big data. Big data is not only business data, not only consumer data or vendor data, it's also manufacturing data. Think of the terabytes of data our companies in Michigan are creating every hour of every day by collecting the data off their machines. It's remarkable. Just think about the data on a gas turbine engine as an engine is flying across America. I just flew from Seattle 2 days ago to Detroit. Just think about the data being created as a result of that engine being flown from Seattle to Detroit. Data is being collected on those machines as they're traveling across America. Data is everywhere. And that's a huge intangible asset that our Michigan companies need to be capturing and figuring out how they can leverage that. Same thing for software. Software is an intangible asset. Marketing and business strategy, huge intangible assets. And more importantly, intellectual property. These are all intangible assets that are driving the value of S&P companies as well as our middle market companies here in Michigan. Let's go to bucket number 3. How do we leverage these IP assets? Well, similar to what we point out in the prior slide there, Bob, and that is we focus on harnessing and securing the innovative solutions by protecting the patents, which protect methods and process and systems, and those give you exclusive monopoly. So it gives you an opportunity to control that space for 20 years. Trademarks, you get the control the brand, your like the Nike swoosh is an example. Twisthink is a great example. Michigan Manufacturing Association on the screen here is an example of a great trademark. You get to protect your brands, and with that comes the goodwill. And there's value in the goodwill and owning your brands. With respect to big data and software, well, guess what? Copyrights come into play. You're protecting those innovative solutions using the copyright tools in our tackle box. And of course, trade secrets, your data, your organizational information, your customer information, things like that. Those are all different things that are part of this bucket of intangible assets that every company in Michigan has. I don't care if you're doing 5 million, 10 million, 100 million, or $1 billion a year. I don't care if you're a consumer business or a company making widgets. You all have intangible assets. It's a matter of identifying and securing those. And the benefit then is bucket 4. What is the value of those IP assets? And I'll just hit on 3 points here, Bob. And that is bucket 1. When you own and secure your IP assets, the value is you get to restrict competitors from coming into your space. That is, they can't now come into your sandbox and play within your area because you own that monopoly. So you're restricting competitors and you're keeping them at bay for 20 years when you have a patent on your new solutions. The second thing is you get to secure your market position. Guess what? When you're patenting and securing your new innovations, you're not selling a commodity product anymore. You're not just like the other guy or other person in other company and selling a commodity product, which is normally a race to the bottom. Instead, when you have secured your market position, you can now charge a premium, and people want the latest and best and greatest new innovative solution. They will pay extra for that. And when you do all that, you get to protect your revenue stream. And again, the CFOs love protecting the revenue stream. When you can get that guaranteed monopoly, protecting that new digital solution for 20 years, guess what? That revenue stream becomes something very valuable. So you're increasing the enterprise value of the company by protecting the IP assets. And that is very valuable.
Sure.
So that's my thought on that. Now, Bob, I know you have conducted a case study. I don't know if you have any questions about this, but it might be good to give a case study of how Twisthink has embraced the human-centered design and gone through this process. And do you have an example you can share with our audience today?
I do, but before I advance to the next slide, thanks for sharing, Doug, your insights here and for your passion. Certainly respect that and appreciate that. But you referenced several times the term tackle box. I would love to hear the story on how you caught that beautiful fish over your right shoulder sometime. Time won't allow today, but next time.
Yeah, no, but I will tell you, we take using the tools in our tackle box so importantly. And I'm a fly fisherman. That's a wahoo fish I caught in Bolivar. We actually have a tackle box. If you go to tackleboxinsights.com, you can get more information about all of our white papers on this particular point. But we actually use the term tackle box quite seriously here. But anyway, let's hear about your case story.
Instead of super lawyer, we should frame your bio as super fisherman.
Okay.
But anyways, you reference a case study, and certainly what I have up on the board now, on the screen now, Flexco, a case study example. I'm going to put the hammer down and bring us home in a timely way. But here's a 100-year-old Midwest private company, certainly a part of the MMA network. Their focus is product being deployed in mines around the world. So they're the company that keeps mines operationally excellent. And no surprise, mining companies around the world are in hot pursuit of digital to drive greater efficiency and greater user experiences within their organization. So Flexco is a benchmark example of somebody making the bold move to pursue smart connected products. So the challenges in their space with the stakeholders that they're serving were around conveyor downtime or lacking insights on their belt cleaning product as it was deployed in far and distant lands. And then certainly the catastrophic event. How do they reduce downtime within a mine? And those on this webinar that have experience in the automotive industry, we know what kind of urgency arises when an assembly line goes down. It's no different in the world of mining when a conveyor belt goes down. So here's this 100-year-old company that really, for their growth and for their success over that run, have relied primarily on mechanical goods and products. And you can't maybe see it all that clearly in this picture, but this purple area is an indication of one of Flexco's product that's referred to as a belt cleaning product. So think of a spatula that is cleaning the conveyor belt as it's moving aggregate into the pile. And that is critical for the life of the capital equipment that's running underneath the conveyor belt. So you want to minimize or eliminate any risk of debris damaging or impacting that capital equipment. So thus is Flexco's claim to fame. But once their product was deployed in distant lands, they, for many years, lost touch of it. And many years when their product was worn out, it required them to react rather than be proactive. So they were very much a reactive business model in serving their products when deployed. And of course, I think the biggest challenge that they faced globally was global competition and organizations copying the same type of product portfolio. So enter the world of digital. And again, this is to enable minds to move in the direction of smart industry. And this is a great example because it's internally, it's the operational excellence that the mines were in pursuit of. But for Flexco, this was all about the pursuit of innovation excellence. And so the process of HCD, as deployed with them over a period of time, unlocked the opportunity of a sensor, and you see it there as this gray unit attached to their belt cleaning product system. This sensor is now designed to maintain and monitor the life and the wear of the belt cleaner. And so in a sense, we're seeing a smart connected product change how Flexco engages with their stakeholders, their dealers.
Bob, I have a question about that. Did Flexco pursue the intellectual property process in protecting this solution that your team came up with?
Well, of course, the answer is Flexco not only boldly, running after bold change, for them to even cross this chasm into the digital world was a strategic, bold move. And certainly then working with them and running alongside of them to uncover the opportunity of a sensor that using accelerators, can determine the vibration status of their product, so they have insight onto the wear of their product. And in that journey, it gave birth to new intellectual property opportunities. And once that has begun, you could say now that they've deployed, they're deploying the system globally as we speak. They've created a new brand called Elevate. The flywheel continues to spin, meaning there's more now with data and insights on product usage or proactive maintenance. They're now seeing applications to take digital to the remainder of their portfolio too. And IP is a key part of that journey, of course.
So I would just say congratulations to Flexco for taking the IP component of this seriously. And here's what they've done. They've now captured the value of their R&D efforts through hiring Twisthink to solve this problem for them. Great solution. Congratulations, by the way, Bob, to you and your team. But more importantly, all those hundreds of thousands of dollars that probably were spent through the process, they can now get an ROI on that. And guess what? The competition cannot copy that because they're going to be violators of the patent. They'll be infringers. So
Right.
they're going to get, Flexco is going to get a return on their dollar now. It may take a while, but they've now identified and secured and protected, and now they're leveraging this new solution across their worldwide platform, and they have a market exclusivity in this new solution. So congratulations on doing a good job at creating the solution and working with them and protecting their IP as well.
Yeah. Great example for, I think, the MMA network to be aware of, and hopefully it inspires you that it can be done. It can be done, and the process of HCD will never fail you. So just closing with a great quote, back to the point where we started about from a digital transformation perspective. Yes, run after it and invest in it for the pursuit of operational excellence, but don't stop there. Follow the example of a Flexco in terms of also using digital to create a new innovative user experience for their stakeholders. And so I see Delaney joining us. Here's where we started. If you could have one piece of data for your operations or one piece of data for your customers, think about it, dream about it, and run after it. What would that data be? With that, I'll stop sharing, and Delaney, maybe you can table a question or two, and we can finish on time.
This is fantastic. Thanks, gentlemen, for a really engaging, thought-provoking discussion. And to the participants, please feel free to enter your questions in the Q&A. We've got time for a couple questions, but I've got a couple of my own that were spurred by some of the things that I've heard today. So, I was really inspired by the example that you shared of Flexco. What I thought was particularly compelling, and maybe you can expand on it a little bit, is that they're looking at it started as kind of a problem solving situation, solved the problem, but then it kind of catapulted a whole nother value proposition. You said they created a whole new brand, and now they're looking at and valuing it elsewhere. So is that a situation that you've seen? I know certainly we're looking at being proactive, not reactive, but have you seen some situations where in the course of being reactive, people took the opportunity to be proactive and find new value?
Absolutely. And again, the driver, the catalyst to that even reactive start that then builds momentum and creates proactive opportunity beyond even their first investment in the digital domain. When you unpack it all, the common starting point is the process of human-centered design or design thinking. And again, I could beat that drum for another hour, but that's where it all begins. And so for organizations to wisely use that process, just like I know organizations are wisely using lean, That's how you develop the momentum that creates the culture that sustains the proactive approach that you're referring to, Delaney. And I appreciate you even highlighting for Flexco. Yeah, they created a new brand, a new business unit. And a new brand means that they're trademarking it, Doug, and they're not only protecting the IP around an accelerometer and a sensor on a mine in Australia, but they're also protecting the brand wisely because they know that over time, with data and with experience and with satisfied clients, that brand is going to grow in value too.
Yeah, and I'll just say that new brand is a new line item guaranteed on their balance sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And that brand can be associated with a revenue stream, which goes right to the bottom line. The CFOs love that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And something that you had mentioned earlier in the presentation, Doug, that I think is an important point that I think would, it'd be worth reiterating is the involvement and thinking about the IP from the very beginning of the process. I know many of our members in the conversations that I've had, in the last year and a half or so are maybe for the first time or for the first time in a long time, having to patent things. They're creating new innovations. And so I would imagine that for some of them, it's kind of a, starting to think about it afterwards. Oh, I got this cool thing. Now I need to protect it. But you're advising getting people involved in the front end.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Earlier we get engaged with the conversation about the problem you're trying to solve, the better. We can give you some inputs early on in the design process of things to consider. For example, we could do a state-of-the-art investigation. You say, Doug, I have the solution. Can you find me patents on this process? Well, absolutely. We can actually lay the groundwork so that Bob's team can then look at the white space, we call it, that's available to innovate in. So early in the process, the earlier we get involved, the better, because it helps the design process. It helps the marketing process, the sales process. It helps the organization understand better the potential solutions to that digital problem that they're trying to solve, as opposed to calling us after the fact, after the launch. The cart is now ahead of the horse, so to speak. It's a little late, and we're getting involved late. We handle things okay at that process, but it's not as good as if we get involved at the very front end of the process to help the design and engineering and marketing team really understand the vision. And so working alongside with them and collaborating early in the process is really the preferred method.
Absolutely.
And sometimes it can save them money by doing that approach.
I'm sure. The rapid pace of change and advancement is nothing new. Certainly in the last decade, if not more, we've seen that within the manufacturing industry, but the pandemic's changed everything. And I think you hit on a really, really important point. Not only the competitive factor, the global factor. You cannot afford to stay still. You need to be moving forward. But if you're going to be attracting and retaining your talent, this is an aspect that I wonder if people are really thinking about. Candidates, your employees need to know that they're doing something groundbreaking, something that is meaningful, that is worthwhile. Let's talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, let me speak to that. For example, look at Tesla and Apple, how they promote innovation, in Google. Aren't people teaming to go there because of innovators? As opposed to old world technologies? How many people are lining at the doorstep right now to go work for a commodity player? So look at the dichotomy there. So innovations can stir on and bring on really cool talent pools and excite them to come work for you.
Yeah. Today's generation of great talent is definitely tied into the power of data and the power of creating new experiences digitally. It's second nature to them, where for old guys like me, and I'll even include Doug on my team of old guys, it isn't necessarily second nature, but to them it's natural. And I think organizations seeking to attract talent, having smart manufacturing plants and having smart connected products deployed is certainly a magnet for the talent that is passionate about data. And they're also passionate about purpose. They want to They want to make a dent in the world. And so companies are wise to consider that as they're making this investment as exemplified by Flexco.
Let me just give you a quick example. On my phone, I can set here right now and turn on my lawn sprinklers at home, or I can set here and turn on my robot vacuum sweeper, setting right here. That's how IoT and AI are now engaging America. And I'm an older guy. Can you imagine how that may stir a young engineer to want to work for a company who's deploying these cool digital solutions that can run on an app? It's really cool what's going on out there.
To put a fine point on that, I get that it could be kind of intimidating for some folks. And what I find with our members very consistently is I'm always inspired by what they do. It's amazing the things they do, but they're often very humble, thinking, I can imagine in the Flexco example, when we're talking about mines, that's not a new industry. That is something that's very ancient. But applying a new concept, and that's something that any company can do, whether you're a Tesla or whether you're several hundred years old dealing with some of the most foundational and traditional technologies, there's still room for innovation.
Yeah, for sure. And so many times I've heard leaders say, oh, that's only something Apple can do or Tesla can do. And it's like, no, that's not true. Run for digital and run for change.
Yeah, and I would just say parting words. Now, Fishman Stewart is a sponsor of the Michigan Manufacturing Association. We love working with your folks, your team. We would just encourage our members. There are over 1,400 members or something like that, Delaney. We would encourage our members. 1,600. So I would challenge every member, I don't care if you're making widgets or you're a service provider, to embrace the concept of human-centered design, and then identifying and securing and protecting your intellectual property, because your competition is going to do that. If they get a hold of Bob first, your competition is going to leapfrog you. So do you want to be innovators, and do you want to survive 5-10 years from now when electric vehicles are driving around in large supplies, or do you want to stay working in the old technology? So the choice is yours. To our members of our manufacturing association, the choice is yours to look ahead and embrace digital transformation. And if a guy like Bob can figure out how to do that on an old mine piece of technology, he can do it anywhere, guaranteed.
Yeah, that is a very great point.
Well, truthfully,
I
didn't figure out anything in a mine, but I have a team of 50 plus behind me that figured that out and are figuring out challenging digital problems as we speak right now. So thankfully, it had nothing to do with Bob, but the power of a team can solve any digital problem. And that's what we live by. And Delaney, I just want to say thanks. This is my first time meeting you and connecting with MMA. And I really appreciate the opportunity. And Doug, as always, it's an honor to learn from you. And I still want to hear about the lure that caught that fish someday. Okay.
Next conversation over a cup of coffee. You got it. I'll come over to Harlan and we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Thanks,
enjoy
Bob.
talking
it's
to you
really
all.
It's really been a pleasure. This has been a great conversation, and I've really enjoyed getting to know both of you more, learning more about these concepts. And Doug, I think you left us on a good note with the challenge. I know that we all are ready to address a challenge, and it's not really an option anymore. So with that, it looks like we're approaching the end of our time. So I want to thank both of our panelists today, Doug Lalone and Bob Nemec. Thank you so much for sharing these thought-provoking and motivating insights. And to our participants that joined us this morning, thank you so much for joining. Contact information for both Doug and Bob is there on the screen for you. So feel free to reach out to them. You got a couple different mechanisms that you can do that. So if you've got thoughts, you've got questions, or you just want to hash out some ideas, if there's been something that you've been maybe considering and weren't sure if it was worth pursuing, I'm sure they'd be willing to chat with you. And I'd also encourage you to check out MMA's website. We've got an array of resources available to support Michigan manufacturers. You can find us at mimfg.org. With that, thank you so much, gentlemen. I hope you all have a great day.
Okay. Cheers. Bye now.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.